You sit down with your adult child and you talk about the situation. Maybe it's about work, maybe it's about school, or they're gaming too much, maybe it's about marijuana. Maybe it's just about the fact that they are not moving forward in life. And during the conversation, it goes differently, right? During the conversation, they stop fighting you, right? Maybe they even agree with you. They acknowledge the problem. They tell you they know that things need to change. Now, sometimes they don't just make a vague promise, right? They give you even the details, right? Sometimes they'll say, I uploaded my resume. I'm going to apply for jobs tomorrow. I'm going to call that college. I'm going to get started at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. You'll see. I'm going to cut back on that gaming. I'm going to start looking for apartments, any of that, right? And the plan actually sounds reasonable, right? It sounds believable. Maybe for the first time in a while, you walk away feeling hopeful. You think, maybe this is it. Maybe something is finally changing. Then a week goes by, and then 2 weeks go by. A month goes by, and nothing happens, or very little has happened. And now you're left wondering, were they lying to me? Were they manipulating me? Did they ever even intend on doing any of it? Now, those questions are understandable. They matter. But usually that's not the most important question. The bigger question is, why are they stuck? Because that is what's really happening. They are stuck. And if we get too focused on figuring out whether or not every promise was genuine, we often miss what's really keeping them trapped. And honestly, what's keeping you trapped. So now, sometimes people do lie. Sometimes people do manipulate. Sometimes people say what they want you to hear, right? I'm not pretending that doesn't happen because it does happen. I've worked with enough families over the years to know that sometimes young adults absolutely know that they are not going to follow through, right? Sometimes they're just trying to avoid conflict, or they're just trying to get you off their back. Sometimes they're trying to maintain control of the situation, right? To keep doing what they're doing. They don't want to change in that moment. That stuff happens. But here's what parents often miss. Most of those young adults don't actually want to be stuck. I would say like the vast majority, if not all of them. I haven't met young adults who want to be stuck, right? They don't wake up in the morning hoping that their life stays exactly the way it is. They want freedom. They want confidence. They want relationships. They want purpose. They want independence. They want to feel successful. They want to feel good about themselves. The problem is, somewhere along the way, they became so overwhelmed, discouraged, anxious, ashamed, avoidant, afraid of failure, right? They became so overwhelmed by that that they don't know how to move forward. After enough attempts of trying that have failed, enough times where they thought they were going to do it and they didn't, enough disappointments, uh, it becomes easier to talk about change than it does to actually risk trying. So that does not make it okay. Let me be clear with that. I'm not justifying their behavior. I'm not saying it's okay to lie, to manipulate, to sit there on their butt and do nothing, all that stuff, right? But understanding why they're doing it helps us respond differently. Because the biggest problem isn't the lie, the biggest problem is the stuckness. They are stuck. And if nothing else changes, they're going to stay stuck, right? And the biggest thing about their stuckness, the biggest lie that they're telling, is the lie that they're telling themselves, right? It's the lie that they're still in control and that their life is still okay. That's what we have to address. right? We have to address the lie that they're telling themselves. We have to address the fact that they are stuck and they don't know how to get out of it, right? And we don't want to get lost in this whole I'm being lied to trap because that misses the point. So let's talk about that trap. Let's talk about the trap that so many parents fall into. And it makes sense if you think about it, right? Parents hear these promises and they feel hopeful. And honestly, I understand why, right? You've been worried, you've been scared, you've been waiting for some sign that things might improve. And then your child suddenly sounds motivated. So you wait, you give them space, you hope. And when nothing happens, your frustration starts to build. And eventually, you're going to show that frustration. And likely, you're going to try to control or push harder. Now, some parents have been through this cycle so many times that they don't believe the promises anymore, right? That's another kind of trap. That's another version of this trap. It's like the moment they hear their adult child open their mouth, they think, here we go again. I feel manipulated. I feel lied to. I feel angry. So they come in even harder, right? With little or no attempt at empathy or connection, right? They're just hurt. So it's more pressure, it's more consequences, it's more lectures, it's more attempts to force change. But that approach often becomes so intense that it increases anxiety, avoidance, and conflict, right? And then that's a cycle that goes around and around. The parents are done with it, and uh, and then they get angry and they push back, and there's no more empathy and connection. Look, both of those paths that I described, right? They end up in the same place. Everybody gets frustrated, everybody gets discouraged, and everybody stays stuck. So, the one thing that I need parents to understand is that people who are stuck often love the idea of being stuck. Uh, no, they don't want to be stuck. They love the idea of being unstuck, right? They sit there and they fantasize about it. They think about it all the time. They imagine a different place in life. They make plans, even in their mind, right? They get excited. They feel hopeful. Maybe this is going to work. Maybe if I did this. And sometimes those plans, those fantasies are outrageous, right? They're such a slim margin. I'm going to become a famous gamer. I'm going to become an actor. I'm going to make a million billion bucks doing this thing. Someone's going to come busting into my room and they're going to sweep me off my feet and everything's going to be okay. Right? They dream about this. They think about how to get unstuck. They don't want to be stuck, right? And when they have that little spark of hope, it feels significant, right? It is significant. I mean, hope matters. Motivation matters. When things and wanting things to be different, I mean, that matters. But none of that is the same as action. A plan to act is not action. A desire to act is not action. A promise to act is not action, right? And I see a lot of young adults, they get that confused, right? And I see where parents get that confused as well because uh, they're motivated. They feel motivated. They have this spark, right? And that feels good. That feels like something's going to change. There's hope, and that hope matters, right? And the parents see it, and they're feeling good about it. But that's as far as it goes, right? The real question is about action, right? How do they learn to take action when they feel discouraged? How do they learn to take action when they're feeling anxious? How do they learn to take action when they feel ashamed? How do they learn to take action when they're not feeling confident? You get where I'm going with this, right? Taking action, that is where change actually happens. No matter how good it feels to have that hope, to have that plan, to believe that something's going to happen, there's got to be a path to action. So that brings us to another point where I think parents struggle. It's about connection, right? A lot of parents have been burnt way too many times. A lot of parents worry that if they empathize with their adult child, right? If they somehow um, like give in to those feelings and that hope and listen to that plan and that desire, that somehow they're going to let them off the hook. I don't think that's true. I think that happens because of all the times where hope has been enough, promises have been enough, motivation has been enough, intention has been enough, and then it didn't happen, right? And so parents get burnt and they're like, if I listen to that hope again, nothing's going to change, right? No, you still need connection. So if you get where I'm coming from, there's got to be action, right? But you still have to be connected. You still have to support them and encourage them through this, but not get stuck in the trap of good intentions and promises. Okay, so you can understand someone's struggle without agreeing with their choices. You can validate their feelings without validating their avoidance. You can care deeply about someone. You can care deeply about your adult child and what they're saying and still expect responsibility. In fact, I would argue that connection often creates the best environment for accountability. Yeah, because sometimes your child needs to hear, I know this is hard. I know that you're discouraged. I know that you feel stuck. I know that you've tried this before. I know that you're scared that this won't work. And then maybe you say, do you want to talk about why this is so difficult? Because when people feel understood, including your adult child, when people feel understood, they're often more willing to look honestly at what needs to change. And after that connection comes the next step, helping them move forward with action. So that's where you might say, I understand that this feels overwhelming. I understand that you're discouraged, but let's talk about how to move forward anyway. Because ultimately, we have to learn how to act even when motivation isn't there. See, that's a huge life skill, right? Learning how to act when motivation isn't there. Your adult child needs to learn how to push through what they feel like doing to be able to actually do what needs to be done. Right? Let me say that again. Your adult child needs to learn how to push through what they feel like doing or what they don't feel like doing, right? But what they feel like doing is like sitting on the couch playing video games, and they don't feel like trying again, right? They don't feel that motivation. They need to learn in those moments how to push through that and to actually do what needs to be done. That's a huge life skill. And you are in a wonderful position as a parent, a loving parent, a caring parent, to get back in the game there and learn that balance of how to be connected, how to be supportive, but continue to push forward. So let me leave you with this thought. The goal here isn't to become a detective trying to figure out whether every promise is genuine, right? It's not about did they lie? Did they not lie? Is this real? Is it not real? Right? Sometimes it is genuine, right? Sometimes it isn't. The bigger issue is whether movement forward is happening, right? Are they moving forward? Right? So we don't get stuck on, are they lying to me? We get stuck on, okay, what's going to move this forward? And then that's why we have to stay focused. We need to stay focused on their behavior, not their promises, not intentions, not speeches, not plans, but focus on their behavior. What is actually being followed through with? All that other stuff is important, but the focus has to be how we move them forward. Because all those plans, all those intentions and motivation, if they don't move forward, that turns into discouragement, that turns into hopelessness and self hate, even, and all of that. So the answer is action and moving forward. All right, one more thing. When you find that balance, right? When you can stay focused on behavior while remaining connected, supportive, and clear, that's your best opportunity for change to happen. Right? I hear that from parents all the time. Like, what's going to make change, right? Staying connected, staying focused on that behavior of actually making change, right? That's what needs to happen. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced any of these cycles with your adult child? Let me know in the comments, right? And if you want to go deeper, I'm telling you, get on the email list and sign up for one of our workshops that are coming up. They're